Somewhere on a mountain in Wales at 3 a.m., 14 men are carrying 40 pounds across terrain that does not care whether they finish. This happens twice a year. It has happened twice a year for decades. Most of the men who begin it will not finish it. That is not a failure of the process. That is the process working exactly as designed. You have been moving for 11 hours. Your legs stopped communicating in the normal way 6 hours ago. What they are sending now is not pain, pain would be manageable. What they are sending is a deep electrical signal that the body reserves for conditions beyond pain, the signal that says the margin has been crossed and what happens next is a choice, not a physical outcome. Your boots are the only thing you can be certain about. Everything else, the direction, the distance, the time, the state of your own body, is uncertain. The boots keep moving. The boots have not failed yet. Everything you have left is organized around that fact. 2 men have stopped behind you. You did not see them stop. You know they have stopped because you have stopped looking back and the knowledge has arrived anyway, through the specific silence of a group that was 14 and is now 12 and then 11 and then fewer. The mountain does not announce departures. They simply happen. The instructor has been watching you since before you knew you were being watched. That is the first thing selection teaches you about this unit, the assessment is always running. There is no moment when you are off the record. The clipboard has been building its picture of you since the moment you arrived, and the picture includes everything you did when you thought no one was looking. A single line on a page. That is what the end of a selection looks like from the administrative side. A single horizontal mark beside a designation, recorded without ceremony, filed without comment. The weight of what that line represents, the weeks of preparation, the years of service before the attempt, the specific decision made in a specific field at a specific hour, is not in the mark. The mark is just a mark. The weight lives elsewhere. The Order of Assassins built their fortress at Alamat in 1090 and held it for 166 years. They chose a location that was impregnable not because it was the strongest position available, but because it was the position that most clearly communicated to everyone who looked at it that the people inside it had already made their calculation and found the answer acceptable. The fortress said, "We are not afraid of your numbers. We know something you don't yet know about us. Come and find out if you want." The Hashashin operative walking the corridor of Alamat has been in Tyre for 4 months before this moment. For months of monastery life, of daily prayer, of conversations with people whose names he has memorized and whose habits he has catalogued and whose trust he has earned with the patient precision of a man who understands that the preparation is the operation, and the operation is simply the moment the preparation becomes visible. The calm in those eyes is not the calm of a man who has suppressed fear. It is the calm of a man who processed fear long enough ago that it has been converted into something else, into information, into fuel, into the specific quiet that exists on the other side of the thing most people will not cross. The Order did not select men who had no fear. The Order selected men who had already decided what to do with it. The map shows 24 more miles. You fold it. You put it away. You do not need to carry the number of the miles remaining in your conscious mind. Carrying that number serves no function. What serves a function is the next step. And the next step. You have reduced the world to a sequence of single steps, each one complete in itself, each one requiring only the decision to take it. The miles will resolve themselves from the steps. You have started moving before you have finished stopping. The body has learned this efficiency from the hours that preceded it. Every pause costs something. Every resumption costs less than the pause cost. The mathematics of endurance say, keep moving. The mathematics of endurance are the same mathematics every special force on this list discovered independently and arrived at the same answer. The MACV-SOG operated in places the United States government officially was not operating in. Their missions were classified not just at the time but for a decade afterward. The men who carried out those missions attended family dinners and neighborhood events and lived ordinary life beside people who did not know and would never know what those men had done in jungles they could not name in countries their government was not acknowledging. The silence they carried was permanent and chosen and absolute. ASOG operator scanning the jungle is not looking for the enemy. The enemy is expected to be there. The operator is looking for the specific wrongness, the thing that does not fit the pattern of jungle at that hour and that temperature and that light level. Every environment has a pattern. Everything that departs from the pattern is data. The operator has spent enough time in this specific environment that the pattern is automatic. Wrongness announces itself. The SOG team crossed the clearing in 11 seconds and the clearing showed no evidence that they had crossed it. This is the operational standard, not just to move but to move without leaving the record of movement. The jungle after an SOG patrol looks like a jungle that has not been crossed. That specific absence of evidence was, in some operations, the only thing that kept the teams alive. The Hashashin operative moved through the market entire for 4 months before the operation. He bought bread at the same stall every day. He attended the same church at the same time. He learned which guards rotated which shifts. He learned the specific habits of the specific man he had been sent to study. He became part of the city's background texture. When the city looked for him later, it could not find him because he had never been visible. The hands are calm. This is the tell. Hands under genuine threat that has not been processed show the threat in their movement, a fraction of tremor, a slightly wrong grip, a touch held too long or released too early. Hands that have processed the threat and accepted the answer show nothing. The Hashashin selected for those hands. Every unit on this list selected for those hands. What the hands show is what the interior of a man looks like when the exterior removes itself from consideration. The final phase of SAS selection is 36 hours of resistance to interrogation. The men who reach this phase have already survived weeks of physical selection. The resistance phase is not about the body. The body has proven itself. The resistance phase is about the architecture of identity, what a man is made of underneath everything the body provided, underneath training and fitness and skill, at the level of pure self. It is the deepest test because it has the fewest variables. Just the man and the question. The hands on the table give nothing. The interrogation has been running for 19 hours. The sleep deprivation, the disorientation, the specific psychological pressure that professional interrogators apply have been accumulating for 19 hours and the hands are still. Not rigid, still. The stillness of a man who has found the floor of himself and is standing on it. The floor does not move. The pressure is real. The floor is real. The floor wins. Alpha Group was formed from the KGB in 1974. Storm 333, the December 1979 assault on the Taj Beg Palace in Kabul, was one of the most audacious special operations in Cold War history. Approximately 700 Soviet operators against a fortified government compound defended by hundreds of Afghan guards. The operation was complete in 40 minutes. The speed was the tactic. There was no negotiation. There was no warning. There was 40 minutes. Operation Tombola, Italy, 1945. The SAS operated behind German lines in Italy, coordinating with Italian partisans, disrupting supply routes, conducting raids. Over 300 German soldiers killed in a single operation. The men doing this were miles behind enemy lines with no guaranteed extraction, no air support, and communications that worked when they worked. They improvised everything. The improvisation was the skill. The skill was what selection had tested. The Iranian embassy siege lasted 6 days. 167 SAS operators were on standby in a forward-holding area for 6 days before the assault was ordered. 6 days in a building nearby, in full kit, ready to go in 30 minutes, eating, sleeping in kit, waiting. The waiting is always the hardest part. The assault lasted 17 minutes. 6 days of waiting for 17 minutes of action. The ratio describes the profession accurately. 2 men on a balcony in London at night, in black kit, in shadow, holding ropes they have not yet descended. Waiting for a signal they cannot generate themselves. The patience required for this is different from ordinary patience. It is the patience of men who have accepted the full terms of the situation and found those terms acceptable. The situation could resolve in any direction. They are ready for all directions. The readiness is everything. The mountain does not negotiate. That is what the selection is teaching. Not strength, not speed, not skill, the absence of negotiation. The mountain requires what the mountain requires. The distance is the distance. The weight is the weight. The time is the time. There is no version of the mountain that is easier than it is. Acceptance of this fact, complete and without resentment, is the quality every special force in history has always been selecting for. For miles from the end, your body offered you an inventory of everything that was wrong. This is normal. This is the body doing its job, cataloging damage, flagging concerns, recommending rest. You listened to the inventory. You made a decision about the inventory. You kept moving. The decision is the test. The inventory is not the test. The inventory is just information. The Medjay were recruited from Nubia by Egyptian pharaohs as mercenaries and became something more, the first professional police force in recorded human history. They protected royal tombs, guarded borders, and enforced order in the most powerful civilization of the ancient world. They did not apply for the role. They were chosen for it, based on evidence of quality already demonstrated. The Egyptians were pragmatic about this. They selected for something they could see rather than building a process to find it. Those eyes looking at the Nile contain 30 years of being exactly what they are required to be in every circumstance presented. The Medjay did not have selection in the modern sense. They had something older and in some ways more accurate, the selection of demonstrated proof. The quality was already visible before the invitation came. The invitation was the confirmation. Delta Force officially does not exist. There is no government document that acknowledges its existence by that name. Its operators attend briefings in civilian buildings. Its equipment is transported in unmarked vehicles. Its missions are conducted under cover stories that bear no relationship to their actual purpose. The unit that does not exist is responsible for some of the most consequential tactical operations in modern history. The absence from the record is itself a capability. Two operators looking at a tactical map in a concrete room somewhere without windows. The map is small. The problem on the map is large. The solution to the problem on the map is being worked between two men who do not need to explain their thinking to each other, not because they are the same but because they have been doing this together long enough that the shared problem-solving language is faster than words. Operation Barris, Sierra Leone, 2000. The SAS went into a jungle village to extract 11 Royal Irish hostages held by a militia called the West Side Boys. The operation lasted 25 minutes. All 11 hostages were recovered. The SAS suffered one fatality. The planning for a 25-minute operation took 3 weeks. The preparation exceeded the operation by a factor that most people would find surprising. That ratio is the lesson. 4 steps from the instructor. You have been walking toward this point for 14 hours. The face you bring to those 4 steps is the same face that has been on those mountains for 14 hours, not the face of a man performing, not the face of a man appealing, not the face of a man hoping. The face of a man who walked 14 hours across Welsh mountains in the dark and arrived. That is the face. That is the only face that works here. The instructor's eyes are doing one thing, seeing accurately. 14 hours of observation have given the instructor a comprehensive picture. The 4 steps are simply the final data points in a picture that has been building since before you knew you were being observed. The mark on the clipboard is the distillation of everything the picture contains. The instructor has seen this picture before, many times, in both outcomes. The instructor knows immediately which outcome this is. GSG-9 was formed in September 1972, 6 weeks after 11 Israeli Olympic team members were killed at the Munich Games during a botched rescue operation by German police. The men who founded GSG-9 had watched Munich happen and understood precisely what Munich meant about the gap between what existed and what was needed. They built the unit from that understanding. The specific shape of every capability GSG-9 developed was the shape of what Munich had been missing. The GSG-9 assessor's stopwatch is measuring more than time. Time is the surface of what the assessment measures. Underneath the time is the question of what a man chooses to do when the time is running out and his body and the clock are in disagreement. The stopwatch catches the outcome. The assessor's eyes catch what produced the outcome. The combination of the two is the assessment. The Australian SASR operated in Vietnam for 9 years, conducting over 1,400 combat patrols in jungle so dense that aircraft cover was unreliable and extraction was frequently impossible under contact. They were called the Phantoms of the Jungle by the North Vietnamese Army, which was not an honorific from friends, it was an acknowledgement from an adversary that these men had become part of the jungle's threat landscape in a way that conventional forces never achieved. A man who is comfortable in an environment that other men find unlivable has a fundamental advantage over those other men. The desert is not hostile to the SASR operator looking at the horizon. The desert is simply where this man works. The sand and heat and distance are the parameters of the job, not obstacles to it. This reframing, from hostile environment to operational environment, is what years of selection and training produce. Not tolerance. Fluency. Dawn is arriving on the mountain and you are still on the mountain and the mountain has run out of night to hide behind. In the dawn light the mountain is simply what it is, rock and bracken and distance. It was always only that. The darkness was never the mountain's weapon. The darkness was yours. The darkness was the condition inside which you had to make choices, and you made them, and the mountain ran out of night, and here you are. The Hashashin's map has a cross on it that represents a specific location in a specific city where a specific outcome has been decided. The men looking at the map are not debating whether the outcome should happen. That decision was made at a level above this room and arrived here as instruction. What is being decided in this room is the route, the method, the timing, and the contingency. The operational professionalism of a group planning an assassination in the 12th century is indistinguishable in structure from the operational professionalism of any unit on this list doing the same in any century. Those eyes looking at the cross on the map have already made peace with every consequence the cross implies. This is the inner discipline the order selected for above all other qualities, not physical courage, not skill, not loyalty, but the specific capacity to look at the full picture of what is being asked and say yes to it with open eyes. Men who said yes while not fully understanding were not selected. The order wanted informed consent to impossible things. The 2016 surgical strikes across the line of control in Kashmir were the first officially acknowledged cross-border offensive special forces operations in Indian history. Para-SF operators crossed into Pakistani-administered territory, struck specific militant infrastructure, and withdrew. The entire operation, preparation, crossing, action, withdrawal, was conducted in darkness, on foot, through mountain terrain, in silence. The public announcement came hours later. The operation itself left almost no record except its results. 5 operators in the forest edge, 1 watching a target, for covering the quarters around them. This is the fundamental unit of special operations, the small team, mutually dependent, each member responsible for a sector that the others cannot cover, each individual's competence being the guarantee of every other individual's safety. The team is not 5 men. The team is 5 sectors of awareness joined into one organism with 5 bodies and 1 function. 6 days. The SAS operators waited 6 days in a holding building in London while a 6-day siege unfolded in a building 20 meters away. They could hear, from their holding position, the sounds of the negotiation, the sounds of the building, the sounds of a crisis being managed by others. They waited. Fully prepared. Fully ready. Not deployed. A unit at the absolute peak of readiness being held in reserve, which requires a specific quality of discipline that the physical selection does not test and the waiting teaches. The hands on the abseil rope have done this calculation already: descent rate, window position, entry angle, clearing time, first contact point. The calculation is complete. The hands are waiting for the signal that authorizes the calculation to become action. The space between calculation and action, the held breath, is where most people find the hardest seconds. These hands are not finding it hard. These hands have been here before. You are at the summit and the summit is just a place. The mountain did not celebrate your arrival. The mountain has not acknowledged your presence at any point during the 14 hours you spent on it. The mountain was not participating in your story. You were participating in the mountain's conditions, and the mountain's conditions simply were what they were. Understanding this, that the mountain owes you nothing and was never opposed to you, only indifferent, is the clearest understanding the selection produces. 700 Knights Hospitaller and 8,000 soldiers. 40,000 Ottoman troops. The Great Siege of Malta, 1565, lasted from May to September. 4 months. The knights held. Not because the mathematics favored them. The mathematics did not favor them. They held because the men who had joined this order understood exactly what they had joined and had found the terms acceptable before the siege began. The siege confirmed a decision that had already been made. It did not require a new decision. The Knights Hospitaller were founded to care for sick pilgrims. They evolved into one of the most effective military forces of the medieval world. Combat medics who could build field hospitals and hold siege lines simultaneously. Their battle cry was Deus Vult, God wills it. What the cry actually expressed was simpler and older than theology: we have decided. We are here. We are staying. Come and test that if you want. The Delta Force operators moving toward the tunnel entrance in Syria in 2019 were moving toward a man who had decided the tunnel was his last position. The decision the operators were enacting had been made in a building in Washington, authorized through a chain of command that stretches from the field to the highest level of government. By the time 4 men in dark tactical kit crossed a Syrian compound at night, the decision had been authorized by everyone in the chain. The 4 men in the field were the last link. The last link is always the most important. You are standing in front of the instructor and your face is giving nothing because there is nothing left to give that was not already given on the mountain. This is the expression the instructor has been waiting to see, not the absence of exhaustion but the presence of what is underneath exhaustion, the quality that the exhaustion was designed to expose. The mountain took everything that could be removed. What is standing in front of the instructor is what could not be removed. The instructor's pen makes a mark. The mark is one of 2 possible marks. You will not be told immediately which mark it is. The selection process does not provide immediate feedback. The selection process provides the result at the end of the process, when everything has been seen and the picture is complete. What the instructor's face does not show you, the clipboard will show you later. The pen moves. The mark is made. You turn to look at the road. Every era. Every geography. Every mission type. Every uniform. Every weapon. Every language. Every century from the ancient Nubian archers on the Nile to the operators in a Syrian compound at night. The same question. The same quality in the men who were selected. The same stillness in the face, the same calculation in the eyes, the same acceptance of complete terms. The machine changes. The selection changes. What the machine is selecting for never changes. It has never changed. It is the oldest thing human conflict has ever asked of a human being. You are standing on a Welsh road at dawn with 4 other men who also finished. Behind you the mountain is enormous and fully lit and entirely itself. Ahead of you the selection continues, there are more phases, more tests, more nights, more weight, more cold, more pressure at greater depth. You have answered the first question. There are more questions. There are always more questions. The units on this list were built for men who said yes to all of them. The worst part is the simplest part, the questions only get harder from here.